How are you today? What's on your mind?
Well, right now I want to be sure that my voice is improving. It's been kind of hard to hear on the previous recordings. So I got a new microphone and we'll see. But I didn't get a new vocal cord. So we'll see.
I think it sounds great. The volume sounds good. It sounds clear to me on my end. If you're listening, we'd love your feedback on how does it sound, because Jerry has been working really hard to improve the quality of the audio setup. So if you like this better, let us know in a comment on YouTube, or send us a note or tweet us or something.
Okay. You have any questions today?
Let's see. You know what I've been thinking about today is I got off a call and somebody was complaining that we've talked about estimates in the past, and they were saying my team always exceeds the estimate, their estimate.
What does that mean? It exceeds what estimate?
So the
amount of money they spend, the amount of time they spend, or?
I think that in this case, well, this is a really good point, because I think in this case they are talking about an estimated number of hours. So they said the team creates an estimate and they record it. And over the past, months or maybe a year, they have recorded both the estimate that the team gave, and the actual is what they're saying. And they said, I thought that there would be kind of a deviation of that some would be under and some would be over. But he said, they're all over. They're over by varying amounts.
By over meaning they spent more hours than they said they would.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Let's be real clear about that.
Very good point. And he said, how can I even begin to get better estimates?
Well, stop pressuring your people. This could account for a situation. You go in, okay, I'll be the boss, you be the estimator. Okay, you estimate the project for me. How many hours, Marcus?
I think it's 41 hours.
Are you serious?
I probably 36 to 41, 36 to 42, maybe 35 to 40.
Really?
It
doesn't look to me like a 35-hour job.
But okay, this is a lot more complicated than you think, because I have to do the thing and we'll need a database, and maybe it could be as few as 30, but I'm sure it's 30 at least.
Okay, all right. So you're estimating 30, and we'll put that down in the records.
I'll put that down in the record, right.
And then you do the project, and it takes 41 hours.
No, it takes 51 hours.
Well, maybe, but...
Okay, sure, 41.
Yeah, because you already knew I would pressure you down, so you came in with already a low estimate, right? So, some people will respond to that by coming in with a high estimate, and they play this game. In fact, we've written about that. It's called the Liars Contest. Have you seen that article?
I haven't, but I was going to say, so situation one is I call that nickel and diming me down. And you wrote down 30, I came in at 41, and it looks like I exceeded. If we were to do this again, I would tell you 51, hoping to arrive at 41.
And this has gone on for a long time in the organization. And so you have to break that chain somehow, all right?
Okay.
So often, I don't know how many times I've had managers come to me with that complaint, and almost always I find out is people are feeling pressured to come in with a low estimate, and then you look at the actual records of what was their original idea, like when you started with 41. And if you record that, you find you weren't that far off. I remember when we did Mercury Project, we didn't estimate hours, but it was time. I can't remember time, but I remember we came in at our estimate was $96 million.
Okay.
And NASA said, this is great. We love what you're doing. You're the only ones who can solve this problem. It's just one thing is cut the amount in half.
The amount of money you were going to spend, which is directly correlated to hours because it's salary, right?
Right. So in order to get the contract, they said, sure, we'll do that. And then there were extensions granted and so on. And eventually finished up. We spent $96 million. I mean,
the game had to be, give us a chunk and then we'll play this change order game or something.
Yeah. So you got to find out what game this person is playing. He may not realize he's playing a game, but that's what goes on. You also have to understand that estimates are not bids.
Estimates are not bids. What does a bid mean in that context?
Okay. If you take, let's say you have a car that needs repairing, you had a crash or something.
Mm-hmm.
So the estimator looks it over and says, we'll fix your car for $4,000. That's fine. That's a bid. If he says, but you're not sure whether it's a bid. He says, this is what we'll charge you and it'll all be fixed. Now, then the car is all fixed, comes back and says, that'll be $5,000. And you said, but you bid $4,000. No, I estimated $4,000.
Right.
But it came 25% over that. You see the difference?
Oh, yeah. We ran into some difficulty. I've had that mechanic, I think, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, everybody has. I've also been that mechanic. But the point is, a bid is a commitment.
A bid is a commitment, right?
Estimate is not a commitment.
You know, I think I think it's Steve McConnell. I was listening to a podcast with him, and he had talked about how some people say estimates and other people hear commitments or they hear targets. And so he was saying it's important to recognize that number, like he basically said, you need to talk about how the other person is receiving it. If they're receiving it like a commitment, then that's going to be rife with miscommunication.
We have a rule that my ex-brother-in-law came up with after when we were at the university. He says, never give a bureaucrat a number.
Okay.
And we had a thing, they sent around to the different departments at the university wanting our something or other meaningless thing, which they didn't tell us what it is. So we said 83 with no units.
Oh, with no units, just 83.
83. And they proceeded, the administration proceeded to broadcast this in their publicity of how well we were doing because we had 83. So don't give a bureaucrat a number. And as soon as you mention a date or an amount of hours, it's locked in stone.
You have to recognize that. It's locked.
Now coming out from the other side, you're a manager and you want to know how long something's going to take. What is it you really need to know? I mean, does it really matter to you that Marcus's team took 41 hours instead of 30 hours?
It's a good question. I feel like, so then I see two situations. One, I might really want to know a date by which that thing will be ready so I can tell my boss or the customer or a commitment. I can make a promise. That seems like one But a date and an effort are only loosely connected.
Well, see, yeah. First of all, you're going at it all wrong. Okay.
Okay.
Start it from the basics, right? What do you need as a project manager, and what do you need as someone on the project? All right. Now, ideally, if you're looking at your money cost, we'll talk about schedule later. You'd like people to make bids on their part. So, if they were outside people and they weren't employees, then you wouldn't ask them how many hours you're going to spend on it. You'd ask them,
get a bid.
How much does it cost me to build this piece? All right.
Right.
And then they give you a bid, and then like we did with NASA and have done countless other times, you start to do it, and then the bidder says, you know what, you've come to me with some changes. This isn't what we bid on anymore. So I'm going to give you a revised bid, and you keep doing that, right? That's the way it can be done with money. And you keep negotiating, and he said, if you want to change something, then I'm going to change my bid.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the reasons that Marcus was 10 hours late on this project was that the boss had added a couple of little features to be implemented, right?
Right.
Just toss them in and expects you to do it in the same amount of time you said before. All right, that's another dynamic that happens. So now, when you want this hours business, just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Doesn't make any sense. If you either get bids or you've got employees who do it when they do it. I mean, what effect does it have if we had this little conversation? You started at 41 and I got you down to 30. What effect does that have on the whole project?
Well, my brain is going in two directions. I mean, a part of me wants to say there's not really any effect. The reality is it'll be done when it's done. If it takes 41 or 51, it'll take that long, and it'll ship when it's ready.
But of course, that's wrong.
Now I feel like you're teasing me.
No, well, I mean, yeah, that's what the boss thinks.
But then I remember Johanna, who likes to talk about the cost of delay.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that, well, if we're shooting for a date of November 1st to release our Christmas promotion, and it's a month late, maybe we've missed a big opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And she would use that, I think, to say, how do we cut scope so that we hit that date, calculating the penalty costs of missing by a month?
I would use it in another way. You can do that. That's one of the things you try. The other thing you say is, gee, because not everything is like that. I mean, when we were doing things like astronomical observations, you're going to observe an eclipse. You can't tell the sun to delay the eclipse a few days because we're having a little trouble.
Right.
Okay. So there was a thing I remember back in the Olympics in Los Angeles. I had a client who was developing some software for tracking the Olympics and what everybody was doing. They had a contract to do this. And if they were 2 weeks late, then the Olympics was over.
It was pointless.
So it was useless. So yeah, so there were clear opportunity costs there. Then when it comes to sales, but we don't hit the Christmas market at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know exactly how much that's going to cost us. But whenever the boss says, oh, this is basically an opportunity cost, it's worth millions to make that date. Usually fine. Well, I can do certain things to go a little faster, but they cost money.
Sure.
I literally had a client do one of those things where they want to go faster for some $1 million project. And they wanted to buy a tool to help their programming, and it cost $29.95. I remember the amount. They just wanted one of them, and the boss wouldn't approve it. It wasn't in the budget. Now, but he claim that this thing was worth millions on a certain date. So another thing you do when you're in these discussions, when somebody gives you a date, so you're the boss, okay? I'm the programmer now, and you're the boss.
Okay.
Okay. So when is this due?
Jerry, this is due December 1st. We have to have it by December 1st.
What year is that?
2018. That's this year.
Okay. Want to be sure, you know.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, how much is it worth to be delivered on November 1st?
Oh, it's going to be worth $200,000 to have it on the 1st.
What did we say, November 1st or December 1st?
We said December 1st.
December 1st.
You've got to get the date right. December.
I'm going to write it down.
2018, $200,000.
Quite established that. That's just a date. So $200,000 is what it's worth. What if somehow we delivered it on December 2nd? How much would it be worth?
Well, I mean, still pretty much 200,000, but the number starts going down because of opportunity cost. Maybe.
Okay. Well, let's take a bigger leap. What about January 1st?
Oh, probably only worth $150,000 then.
So it's a $50,000 difference to make it a month earlier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they expect to sell in the first month.
Mm-hmm. And you won't get that. That's just lost sales.
Well, our competitor's coming out, and so we feel that we won't be able to regain that sales. Those sales.
So I need. It's pretty early still, you know, because I don't like to do this late in the project. This is only February. So I need to hire another person, be in the $50,000 range, and then we'll be able to get it done by December 1st.
Well, that really cuts into things. I don't know that I'll have to get a position approved. I mean, we're a long ways out. You don't think you can hit that date?
What? You asked me, and I'm telling you that if you wanted, if it's worth a lot of money to you, to have it on the 1st or 2nd or maybe around that time, I'm asking you to invest that money into the project.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, it is. And that's why you wanted. That's why you wanted it at that time, and that's why you want to invest to get it.
What if we waited until end of August and we saw where you were at, and then maybe we brought in some help. We got some contract help late to kind of just clean things up.
No, that violates one of the basic laws of software development. You bring in people late in the project, you slow the project down.
I think that's one of those axioms or laws, yeah.
Called Brooks Law.
Adding more people to a late project only makes it later?
Yeah. And we can explain the dynamics of that, or you can read about it in one of my books. So that's definitely, if we're worried about the schedule and it's worth a lot of money to us, then the time to do something about it is right now. We bring on a new person any later, we'll just be spending the time bringing them up to date. It'll just slow down our other people.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time he's ready to actually contribute, your date's over with.
And I suppose on one, so if the manager says, okay, let's spend that $50,000 to do that, then it seems like the math would show that instead of the project being worth our $200,000, it's now only worth a maximum of $150,000 because either my costs are more upfront or my loss of revenue is that month afterwards. So I guess I could say, well, if the cost is the same, maybe I'll just accept a date that's a month later. Do you think you can hit that?
Well, that's what we're going to try for. You never know this far. As you say, it's very far in advance. But as we get closer, we'll see the sales preparations and so on take place. And we'll see what has to be done.
Yeah, it's interesting because that idea, and I see it all the time, of we'll bring in some people late in the game to fix things up. I was just talking with someone today who said, "Oh, I fired my old web developer and I've got a new one coming in to fix things up." And because we've had a lot of drama, I don't really know what drama means. We've had a lot of drama on the web team, and so we fired those people, and so now we have a new person coming in to fix things up, and we just need someone who fits with our company.
People are interchangeable. They're like plugs. You can plug your lamp in any socket and it works, right?
That's so a web developer is a web developer. I mean, the title sounds very similar.
I remember many years ago, I went up to New York to start the IBM Systems Research Institute. This would be about 1960. If you can think back that far, you probably weren't even around then.
I've heard of SRI. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get into the hotel, the Beekman Hauer Hotel, which is right up next to the United Nations building. And I have an electric toothbrush. Right?
Okay.
And I plug it in, it doesn't work.
I actually didn't realize that they had electric toothbrushes that far back. So
well, I think it was a toothbrush. I was going to say a razor, but I had a beard then. I don't know, maybe for trimming. So anyway, or for cutting my hair. I don't know, but maybe it was a razor, electric razor. So it didn't work. So, oh, well, too bad. I don't really need it. Anyway, I tossed it in a wastebasket. And I came in the first day at the new place on UN Plaza. And everybody was talking about how their razors were broken.
Really?
And we got in a little discussion. And then we figured out something had gone on. We all ran back to the hotel, which is about 2 blocks away. And the maids and cleaning nurse had recovered all the razors because it happens all the time in that hotel. This hotel was the original Edison electric system, which was direct current, not alternating current.
Ah, wow.
And so it was very, very one of the few places, I don't know if it's still there, one of the few places anywhere that still had direct current. And so the maids, people come, they put in a razor, doesn't work, throw out the razor, and it must be 100 rooms you should have a razor concession downstairs, sell DC razors. Anyway, that's an example of the pluggability.
Yeah.
You may get a AC consultant or a DC consultant.
So yeah, that idea that people are just interchangeable. But
if they're really interchangeable, why are you kicking out those other people in the first place? Right?
Yeah, because if they're all the same, that's true. And frankly, I asked this person, I said, well, how do you expect people to work together, and what's your process, and what are the expectations? How does work come in? Well, we really just need mature people who can figure all that out. And well, that's another problem of the idea of maturity somehow lends itself to figuring it all out. And
well, it does, but then that's why you pay more to the mature people.
That's true.
And then they complain, well, we don't want to keep these old guys around because it costs too much.
Yes, I have been a victim and seen that in a variety of ways in life.
See, whenever you see people, there's another rule of thumb, see people talking about a cost-benefit analysis, which is kind of what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
Hiring this guy to get.
Yeah.
But they're much better at calculating costs than they are at calculating benefits. See, I mean, like I could tell you, I could hire a guy for 10 months for $50,000. I can do that. And I'm pretty close. I can, I know what salaries are in the area. So I just made that up. But I mean, whatever that number is, that number can be pretty well estimated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about how many sales we're going to get in the month of December?
Boy, and that is where, as if you've done anything where you're involved with the sales team, it's a complete crapshoot, right?
Yeah, right. So you're comparing costs, which to benefits, which you don't know. I mean, what if I say, well, I think it sell 100,000 in that first month.
Well, then clearly adding another programmer is a no-brainer.
That's a good deal, right?
But if there's a pretty good chance,
you just made up that other number in the first place.
Well, but you're right. If our sales are twice that, then we would be really silly not to hire another programmer. Mm-hmm. But what if our sales are only going to be half that? Then a lot of other parts of the equation actually look different too.
Well, that's right. And maybe we'll be out of business. So we're making this product. I have literally had a couple clients who came to me and said, we put out our product, our service in some cases, and nobody bought it. The software didn't work.
Yeah.
That pleased anybody. And they said, we've got some money in the bank and we can go on for another couple of years. But if the next product doesn't succeed, we're out of business.
We're done.
So we want you to show us how to build software that actually works and does what we say, design it. And we did that in a couple of places for some fairly big projects. So the cost, you're playing around with two different things, you see. You can keep pressure on the programmers and so on, and pushing for optimistic dates or whatever you call it. And if you're pushing on them is disturbing their work, then you're just working against yourself.
Well, and I know when I've been pushed on, to be honest, because I mean, probably most people listening have been on, hopefully you haven't been the pusher, although I have, and maybe this is my penance. I admit it. I have done that, but I've certainly been pushed in the past. That experience doesn't immediately just wash away and I forget it. I go back to my desk and I feel a little frustrated and I feel a little disrespected and bullied or driven down or whatever you want to call it. And I have trouble concentrating for a little while. Like it's not just that when I leave, I should forget all that. That manager has sent a signal about what he thinks about me.
Yep. And you don't do as well.
I don't do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe maybe it only lasts an hour. Maybe it lasts 5 minutes. But I've seen some people who have told me 3 weeks later when they were honest, boy, it really stung, Marcus, when you said you thought I was sandbagging that project and I could get it done faster. That really kind of stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's not a quick, you don't realize what you're doing, but it doesn't just go away very quickly.
No. So, there's different philosophies. One is you get people to work hard by treating them badly. And one, you get them to work hard by treating them well. And another is that you treat them like human beings, like your colleagues, and expect to do their best as you would. And that's the best you can do. That's my philosophy. I think, for example, well, we could treat them even better. We'll give them bonuses, we'll have parties for them and all that.
Right.
And that tends to, for a lot of people, put some doubt in their mind. What are they trying to do to us, or what are they trying to hide from us? All this hullabaloo.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily pay off at all. And I actually had, I do this test. I'll tell people, given your manager, they have bad relationship, or the manager, one day you came in, you found on your desk was an envelope from your manager with a little note in it and $1,000 bill, or now we don't have $1,000 bill, $100 bills,
Yeah.
$1,000 in cash. He said, "This is just for, you've been doing a good job. Take it." Well, how would you respond to that? And a third of them wouldn't even take it.
And these were people who felt they didn't really trust their manager already?
Yeah, because they wouldn't take the money because he's going to say, "I gave you this money," and now I had exactly the same thing happen when I was at the university. One of the reasons I went to the university so I could have the whole summer off, and at a certain point, and that was in my contract and everything. And the dean started in about how, well, other people stay around here in the summer. We can't reach you. You're off in Europe, blah, blah, blah. And I said, "Well, that's what our contract." He says, "Yeah, but I've done a lot for you." Like, he gave me some money. There was a conference in Poland, and I went to the conference, but I paid for it myself. And he, without asking me, went and got $200 grant to cover my expenses going to this conference. We, flying to Europe and back and staying there was a little more. And then he would bring that up. He'd say, "Well, you could say, look, I got that grant for you." Right? And I had seen this earlier. My father had a shop where we worked. I worked there. We painted cars and repaired vents and stuff. And he had the experience a number of times of having some very good worker, and he brought him in. He gave him a big raise, and the guy never came back to work. Why? Well, we interviewed one of these guys, and he's, "Well, I figure you give me that big raise, you expected more of me now, and I'm working as hard as I want to work."
The pressure's on. There's no, and I don't know. I was talking to one of my clients, and I wonder if this is almost the opposite. Maybe you could tell me your thoughts. He had a programmer on his team, and I said he was struggling with this programmer. Not really, something about the requirements weren't perfect, and perfect's the wrong word. I know how you feel about perfection. So anyway, long and short is I suggested that the programmer collaborate to write the requirements, sit down with the customer and interview them. And my client said, "Well, I don't really pay that programmer enough to expect them to be able to talk to the client. I'm hoping that someday I can pay a programmer enough that I could expect they could talk to the client and do that. But this programmer is not paid at the top, so I don't feel I can ask that of them." I thought that was an odd dynamic that he associated the pay he gave the person with something that seemed very reasonable.
Well, I mean, for me, that's always a mystery to me, because my pay, the biggest component of my pay, was the work I got to do. In other words, you could give me a raise, but put me on some really dumb project.
Yeah.
That's not a raise.
Right.
Well, we're doing this, because we know it's a sacrifice for you to go be down in the sub-basement maintaining these old COBOL programs, so we're giving you a raise. Well, no, I don't want to do that. I mean, my whole life is going away, wasting it down in the basement, doing old COBOL programs. So managers, most of the managers that I've dealt with in our business really are not very good managers. Mostly because they have these models. If I scream at people, they'll program faster and maybe they won't make mistakes. If I give them a raise, I can expect them to work more overtime and put in a lot of time, which just what we need is a lot of really tired programmers who can't think very well. I don't know, what is they trying to do?
Well, and that goes back to the mechanic Like, so there's a perfectly valid reason why a mechanic or any person who's given a raise or $1,000 in cash is suspect of it.
Mhm.
What do you want? Even though they may never ask, they
Mhm.
may not take it because I don't want to know what you want.
Yeah,
I just don't want to give it to you.
yeah,
And the more money you give, the more you must want, right?
yeah, yeah. Now, if it's a big enough one-time payment, I can just take it and run.
Right. If you put
But,
$1 million on my desk, then I won't show up the next day. But
yeah. So, yeah, this is something I've been struggling with for years, for decades. Is we don't. Well, this is why I wrote the quality software management books. Try to give models that were more sensible, like the one we talked about before, Book's Law. Adding people late in the project makes it later, right? And other things like that. Um, Screaming at people working overtime. Fred Brooks, I think, also talked about this, that when I know we personally discussed it, you could have overtime to get something done. Maybe instead of a 40-hour week, you work a 50-hour week, or maybe 2 weeks. After that, it starts to reverse itself. And working the extra time, it totally upsets the people's lives outside, and they don't get enough sleep, and they don't think about it, and they actually start doing worse in 50 hours than they used to in 40. So yeah, because you can get away with a week, maybe 2 weeks of scheduled overtime, you easily extrapolate that to thinking we could just do it forever.
sure.
There was a famous memo put out that was sent to me by several people at a large software company by a well-known president, who said that they had to get some products out. He said that nobody will take any sick days until, I'll say November. Nobody is allowed to be sick or take their
Well,
vacation days or et cetera, et cetera. And they just got this and laughed. Like, what? Oh, yeah, I get the flu, so I better come to work and infect the whole office, right?
right.
That'll be helpful. Um,
You know, yeah, that I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard that sick day one. Certainly, I've heard nobody gets to take a day off till the project's done. What was the book? Was it in the 90s called Death March? Was it Ed Jordan who had a book, something like that? It was Escher's eternal climbing loop or something. These poor people on the cover who are just always climbing upward. But
yeah. Anyway, those are some of the dynamics that you ought to know if you're trying to build software. And another part of this is some other products. Let's say we're making teddy bears. Okay. I've got a few here. You can't see them, but you make teddy bears and you want to make November 1st or whatever for Christmas. So the Christmas started this year around the end of September or earlier than that. They started seeing commercials.
Yes.
Let's say you've got a date, November 1st, a reason because let's say it has to do with not Christmas. Well, that's the Christmas sales of teddy bears. And you've decided that if our teddy bears are ready to ship on December 1st, then we'll get our maximum sales in December. Well, I'm making teddy bears here, and I notice that they have eyes, they'll put eyes in the teddy bear. And we don't have enough of the quality eye that we have. Somebody in Germany makes these and they ship them to us, and they didn't ship us enough because we think we're going to sell more. So what do we do? You're the boss. What do you do?
Do you try and find another eye supplier?
Well, we did, but there's nobody.
Maybe this is where you scream at the German supplier.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't work, right? But you have other eyes that are just not the same, quite glow to them.
So maybe you go find another inferior supplier of eyes, or
Yeah,
you've got some eyes in a box from a previous
yeah,
bear, because you've been making bears a long time. You've got little bear parts all over.
right. So you've changed the requirement to make the schedule, right?
Right.
And it's done all the time.
Yeah.
And most bear buyers will not even notice. Maybe subconsciously they'll notice and be a little less likely to buy these bears than the others. And if somebody complains they ordered one and they thought it had the glowing eyes and it doesn't, oh, I'm so sorry. We'll give you a refund, or in January we'll have some more glowing eye bears, right?
We'll send you a free one. Our apologies with
Yeah.
our gift to you or whatever.
Yeah. So, okay, how do you do that with software?
Well, it sounds to me like we're changing the requirements. Maybe we're shipping with less and then making updates later.
You're doing, let's take something straightforward. You're doing a payroll program, right, for me. And there's all these new tax laws at the beginning of the year, right? And presumably all the tax rates and stuff have to change. So I'm going to deliver you this payroll stuff. But gee, Marcus, we're still using last year's tax rates. Is that okay?
Doesn't feel okay. If I'm using, the state may not feel like it's okay. The IRS wants its amount of money. My employees.
But they were good enough for last year. Well, why not?
Sure. No, that's not okay. Now, I guess I will have to switch payroll vendors.
No, I secretly say, but we've got you trapped. This is too late now.
Yeah. Oh, it's a huge pain to switch payroll vendor. Like I'm just cringing right now thinking about everything to do with accounting. So I guess I have to say, I guess it has to be, when will you have the update?
Well, we won't have it by tax time. But you can get an extension with the government.
Yes, that's true.
Tax law, so that puts it on your shelf, right? You take care of that. We'll get the software done by middle of August. But
my extension is until September or October or whatever.
March 15th is or April 15th is a tax day, and all the withholding things have to go out. But you tell them, we're having trouble with the software. Everybody accepts that as an excuse, right?
That's funny. Yeah, everyone does. Yeah.
And that'll be, and then as far as those election boxes that we're making, those voting boxes that the Russians have been tapping into, and we're going to fix that security leak, but not in 2018. We won't be in time for
There's
this.
just no time. It is funny. I hear that excuse, the computer's not working right, from everyone in my life, from the mechanic to the cable company to anyone who I envision is sitting in front of a computer.
I wrote a story about this, which you may have seen. I don't remember which book it's in. It's actually happened to me. But I had some certificates of deposit that every month paid me a check. They could have deposited in there, but I was using them for income.
Sure.
And 1 month, my checks didn't arrive. I had 2 CDs and a check from each one. They didn't arrive. I called the bank. I said, where are my checks? Oh, well, our computer's having some trouble. And we can't. But we'll give you 2 checks next month.
Oh.
Cover the amount. I said, no, that's not our contract. The contract is you pay me every month on the first of the month. Well, our computer can't do that. I said, well, my computer can't take the check being late. And that's kind of stumps them, right? When you tell them your computer entered. So I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, I need that money, and I'm getting in a car. It takes me a little while. I'll be down at your place in person, and you will give me the two checks. Well, I said, I'll see you later. And I drive down there, and there I am in person. And they took a pen and a check, and they wrote two checks.
Shocking. Yeah. The computer is down. That we hear all the time. We even hear it here in Oregon with our gas stations. Although I bet in other states where you can pump your own gas, you'll pull up to a pump occasionally and the computer won't be working and you'll have to go inside or pay cash or something else.
Yeah. And this happened even on our little discussions here. The computer wasn't working. We couldn't go on.
Mm-hmm. But today we have, and we've gone on for, oh golly, almost an hour now.
Oh, really? We weren't supposed to go that long.
Well, the thing is this is our show for other people to enjoy. So we're just going to continue to experiment with it, right?
Yep.
And so today we've done about a 50-minute show, and hopefully I always find it interesting to talk about these things because it's so easy to get in the weeds, to sort of have the wrong mindset about managing programmers, people, what carrots and stick or management theory, whatever. At the end of the day, your old advice that you told me not that long ago about the golden rule, right? It feels like it still rings so true today.
And it's really, we have the platinum rule, which says, do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Because a lot of times the manager finds himself, herself, in a different position than the people who are working for them. They don't have to produce anything at a certain date.
Right.
They don't have to keep track of their hours managing.
No.
And they even have a parking space that's closer to the building than everybody else. And so they don't waste as much of their time on the parking lot. And so really, I'll give you one example of that, and then we'll get off. Wasn't the managers, but this company sold music, recorded music. And every month you got a little card that said, this is the selection for this month, which you will get automatically unless you send back the card.
Right. I remember those.
Yeah. I don't know if they're still around like that, and I'm sure they're very profitable. And they had started to get a lot of complaints and maybe some government intrusion because they would send out the cards and like your card would arrive today and the payment is due today.
Right.
Or yesterday.
Yeah.
They do that here on taxes. Some of the smaller counties, the state collects taxes for them, property taxes. But if there's late fees, the county gets to keep them.
So they send the notices out at the last minute.
Well, a little bit after the last minute, actually.
They guarantee that most people are going to pay a late fee.
And they say, well, and when a question about this, they say, well, if they're just a few days late, they don't have to send in the late fee. But it says they do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do. And some people, if you don't, they don't bother you. Anyway, so this club, this music club, I said, well, yeah, people are complaining. I said, well, I don't know why. We carefully tested for reactions and so on. And so, in fact, we eat our own dog food, as they say in the business, and every employee has to be a subscriber to the music.
Oh my gosh.
so that they get the same mailing just with everybody else. And I haven't heard any complaints from them. Well, I checked into this. Turns out the employees belong to the club, but because they're employees, they don't have to pay for the music. So if they don't send in their card, they get some music, which they can toss or listen to. Or
right.
And it's not the same.
Yeah.
At all.
that at all, right? So the golden rule, of course, says do unto others as you'd like them to do unto you. But the platinum rule, can you say that one more time for us?
Do unto others as they would have you do unto them.
Which involves knowing, which might involve asking.
My goodness, even observing
their reaction. Boy, which involves less assuming. I feel like we're on a thread here. And it's maybe what's happening in my head isn't exactly what's happening in your head.
You think that might be that you weren't exactly the same?
I like how at the beginning of Virginia Satir's, I forget the new People Making. Making. She talks about how we all have the same, usually, number of parts, arms and legs, and so we're all the same in that way. But fingerprints and many other things are completely unique. So any imagining that what's going on in me is exactly the same as what's going on in you is a pretty dangerous assumption to make.
It's very generous in a way. You're like me. You're like me. You're a good guy. I'm a good guy. I think you're a good guy. Right?
Sure. We're the same. We're both good guys.
A salary of $80,000 a year is enough for me. So why do you want 100,000?
It should be enough for exactly anybody who's a good guy, who's good with their money, frugal, wise. I can tell you all those things. So 80,000 should be plenty. Any more than that, it's just greed.
Well, of course, you have 14 children.
Right. Exactly. Yep. All right. Well, if there's nothing else people get from that, hopefully it's the idea that,
what we have 14 children.
We're not going to go there. But the reality is that, assuming that how other people are thinking or viewing the subtle pressures that you're putting on them when you say, really, will it take that long? I think those are pretty important lessons. If you're unhappy with your estimates, if your team appears to be less than happy working with you, or maybe they're showing some signs that they're a little, they don't want to be real close to you, maybe it's time to consider that you should be doing more asking than telling and find out more about them.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks. Talk to you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.